December 5, 1945. Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station, Florida. 5 U.S. Navy torpedo bombers take off at 2:10 in the afternoon. A routine training mission, navigation exercise over the Bahamas. 2 hours. They had done this dozens of times. The planes are TBF Avengers. The pilots and crew are experienced. The lead instructor, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, has over 500 hours of flight time. This is not supposed to be dramatic. At around 3:40 p.m., something goes wrong. Taylor radios the control tower. He says, "We cannot see land. We don't know where we are." He sounds confused. By 4 p.m., the transmissions are getting stranger. By 6 p.m., all 5 planes are gone, every single one of them. The Navy sends a search and rescue plane to look for them. A Martin Mariner, a large flying boat with a crew of 13. It also disappears. No wreckage, no bodies, nothing. 6 aircraft, 27 men, vanished. And the location? An area of the Atlantic Ocean that would later become the most famous, mysterious place on Earth. The Bermuda Triangle. This is the real story of Flight 19, and the truth is both more logical and more heartbreaking than the legend. Okay, quick background. The Bermuda Triangle. You have probably heard of it. It is a loosely defined area of the Atlantic Ocean, roughly between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. The legend says ships and planes disappear there at an unusually high rate. That compasses go haywire. That there are mysterious forces, maybe aliens, maybe underwater cities, maybe portals to other dimensions that swallow vessels whole. The legend is largely not true. Multiple studies have found that the Bermuda Triangle does not have a statistically higher rate of disappearances than any other heavily traveled stretch of ocean. The Lloyd's of London insurance market, which insures ships, does not charge higher premiums for voyages through the Bermuda Triangle. Because the data does not support the myth. But Flight 19 is real. The disappearances are real. So what actually happened? Here is the honest answer. Nobody knows for certain. But we know a lot. More than most Bermuda Triangle stories will tell you. And the explanation, when you hear it, makes complete human sense. It is not aliens. It is something much more relatable. Getting lost. So, back to December 5th, 1945. Flight 19 is a training exercise called Navigation Problem Number 1. The 5 planes, each carrying a pilot and 1 or 2 crew members, are supposed to fly east from Fort Lauderdale, drop practice bombs on a target area near the Bahamas, then fly north, then return west to base. A triangle route. Simple. The lead instructor is Lieutenant Charles Taylor, 28 years old. Experienced pilot. More than 500 hours of flight time, including combat duty in the Pacific. Taylor has one specific issue. He has been flying in this area for only a short time. He is more familiar with the Gulf of Mexico than the Atlantic. The 5 planes take off at 2:10 p.m., the bombing run goes fine, and then at around 3:40 p.m., Taylor contacts Fort Lauderdale. He says something that nobody expected. He says, "Both my compasses are out. Both." A pilot has 2 compasses as a backup system. In the incredibly unlikely event that one fails, the other provides navigation. Taylor is saying both have failed, which either means an extraordinary coincidence. Or, and this is what investigators later concluded was more likely, Taylor was already confused about where he was, and the compass readings he was seeing were telling him he was somewhere he wasn't. What follows over the next few hours is one of the most extraordinary sets of radio transmissions in aviation history. Let me read you some of them. 3:40 p.m. Taylor says, "We cannot see land. I don't know where we are. I think we must have got lost after that last turn." The control tower responds, tries to help. 4:26 p.m. Another pilot in the flight, a man named Captain Edward Powers, takes over the radio. He sounds calmer. He says, "We don't know where we are." Taylor has not turned on his IFF transponder, the device that would allow ground radar to track him. He says he cannot remember the procedure. The sun is setting. The weather is getting worse. Wind is picking up. Visibility dropping. The planes are running low on fuel. At 5:15 p.m., Taylor says something that investigators later believe was the critical mistake of the entire flight. He says, We are heading 030 degrees. We didn't go far enough east. We may as well go west. West. Taylor believes he is over the Gulf of Mexico. He is almost certainly not. He is most likely east of Florida over the Atlantic. By heading west, which would take him home if he were over the Gulf, he is heading further out into the Atlantic, away from land, away from safety. The last clear transmission from Flight 19 is received at around 7:04 p.m. After that, nothing. The Navy dispatches search and rescue teams. 2 Martin Mariner flying boats, large aircraft specifically designed for search and rescue over open ocean, are sent out. At 7:27 p.m., one of the Mariner's radios back. It is its last transmission. The Mariner disappears too. Now there are 6 aircraft missing. Here is what investigators later determined about the Mariner. A ship in the area reported seeing a large explosion in the sky at around 7:50 p.m., in the area where the Mariner would have been. Martin Mariners were known in the Navy as flying gas tanks. They used high-octane aviation fuel and leaked fumes. The slightest spark from any source, a switch, a cigarette, a static discharge, could ignite them. It appears the Mariner exploded in flight. Not mysterious. A known mechanical risk. A tragic accident. So now the Navy is searching for 5 missing Avengers and dealing with the loss of a rescue plane and its 13-man crew. The search area is enormous. The ocean is dark. The weather is getting worse. Nothing is found that night. Nothing is found the next day. Nothing has ever been found. That is the part that remains genuinely unexplained. So what happened to the 5 Avengers of Flight 19? The official U.S. Navy investigation concluded, cause unknown. But investigators, historians, and aviation experts who have studied the case in detail have reached a fairly consistent explanation. Taylor became confused about his position. He believed he was over the Gulf of Mexico when he was almost certainly over the Atlantic east of Florida. He made navigation decisions based on the wrong assumption. The planes flew east, away from land, when they thought they were flying west toward it. They ran out of fuel over open ocean, in the dark, in deteriorating weather, probably 200 to 300 miles east of Florida, and they went into the water. The Atlantic Ocean in that area is thousands of meters deep. No wreckage floats up from that depth. The current patterns in that area are complex. Anything on the surface would have been dispersed rapidly. There is nothing mysterious about the fact that nothing was found. Dozens of aircraft and ships have been lost in that stretch of ocean without trace. It is deep. It is large. The currents are strong. The ocean keeps what it takes. What happened to Flight 19 was not supernatural. It was tragic. A good pilot, under terrible conditions, in an unfamiliar area making a wrong turn, and paying for it with 13 lives. So if the explanation is relatively logical, why did Flight 19 become the most famous mystery in the Bermuda Triangle? A few reasons. First, the disappearances happened together. 5 planes on a training mission, then a rescue plane in the same area. On the same day. That clustering is unusual and dramatic, even if each individual disappearance has a rational explanation. Second, no wreckage was ever found. The ocean is deep and large and does not give things back. But no wreckage means no closure, and no closure feeds mystery. Third, and this is the big one, a writer named Charles Berlitz published a book in 1974 called The Bermuda Triangle. It sold 20 million copies. It described the triangle as a place of genuine supernatural mystery. It popularized the legend worldwide. Berlitz was selective with the facts. He left out explanations. He omitted context. He presented mysteries without resolutions. He was telling a story, just not the whole one. And the story he told was more exciting than the truth, which is often how myths are born. A real event, real disappearances, real loss. And then a storyteller who fills in the gaps with something more interesting than the answer. The Bermuda Triangle is real. It is just not mysterious. It is a heavily traveled stretch of ocean with unpredictable weather, complex currents, and a very deep sea floor. Ships and planes disappear there, the same way they disappear in every other heavily traveled stretch of ocean, just without a famous name. I want to spend a moment on Charles Taylor. Because in a lot of Bermuda Triangle stories, he is either the mysterious vanishing hero or the incompetent pilot who got everyone killed. He was neither. Charles Taylor was 28 years old. He had flown combat missions in the Pacific during World War II. He had over 500 hours in the air, more than most pilots of his era. He asked not to take this particular mission that day. He told his commanding officer he didn't have his navigation plotting board. His request was denied. He flew the mission. And somewhere over the Atlantic, in deteriorating weather, as the sun set and his fuel ran low, he made a navigational assumption that turned out to be wrong. He fought for his flight. He kept searching. He kept transmitting. His last known transmission showed he was still trying. Charles Taylor was not careless. He was not reckless. He was a skilled pilot in a bad situation who made a mistake and couldn't recover from it. He was 28 years old. The 13 men who flew with him were young too. Some were teenagers. They were sailors and airmen doing their jobs on a Tuesday afternoon in December, and they didn't come home. That is the real story of Flight 19. Not mystery. Loss. Here is something genuinely extraordinary. People are still looking for Flight 19. The ocean floor in the area where the planes likely went down is between 200 and 600 meters deep in some sections. Searchable with modern technology. Various expeditions have gone looking over the decades. In 1991, researchers found 5 Avenger aircraft on the ocean floor off Fort Lauderdale. Initial excitement. Could these be Flight 19? The serial numbers were checked. They were not from Flight 19. They were 5 different Avengers, lost at different times, in the same area, which tells you something about how many aircraft went down in those waters during the war years. The ocean floor in that area is, apparently, scattered with the evidence of the age of naval aviation. Flight 19 specifically has never been found, which means those 14 men, Taylor, his crew, and the crew of the Mariner have no grave, no marker, no place to visit, just the ocean, and a story that the world keeps telling. Because the ocean keeps its secrets, and because sometimes the most honest answer is, we do not know, and that is okay. Here is what Flight 19 taught me. Mystery is comfortable. It gives us something to talk about without having to sit with the harder truth. The harder truth about Flight 19 is this. 14 young men went to work on a Tuesday afternoon in December. They were trained. They were professional. They were doing everything right. And a combination of bad luck, deteriorating weather, a malfunctioning compass, a wrong assumption, and a deepening Atlantic Ocean took all of them. No alien intervention required. No supernatural forces. Just the reality of flying in 1945, before GPS, before modern navigation systems, before the kinds of redundancies we now build into every aircraft. The Bermuda Triangle mythology took these men and turned their deaths into entertainment, into a puzzle, into a mystery for books and TV shows and YouTube videos, which is, if you think about it, a strange kind of tribute. What Charles Taylor and his crew deserve is to be remembered as what they actually were. Sailors, airmen, young men, doing their jobs, who didn't come home. The ocean is deep and wide, and it has taken many of them. Flight 19 is just the one we kept talking about. If incredible true stories like this are your thing, told honestly the way they deserve to be, you already know what to do.